Train the muscles, not the joints. Hello, welcome back to Natural Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to do a little bit of training in the garage where I talk about some concepts with you. And one of the concepts is, changing the exercise order or the template in how you train. Now, as a standard sort of thing, most people will train their chest or their back first before doing any sort of arm movements, which makes sense because your arms do come into play whenever you're doing bench presses, for instance. So you're using the front delt, you're using the triceps, and of course the rotator cuff and everything. And then when you're doing the bench press, you're trying to also facilitate as much chest growth as possible. So the problem is that if your shoulders are exhausted or your triceps are exhausted, then they will fail long before the chest does. And therefore, it's a common sort of knowledge that you will not necessarily get as good of a chest workout or be able to push the chest into failure as much as you might want to if you want an adaptation in that area. But one thing I'm going to say is that because this concept exists, a lot of times people start to, use that like a commandment and then never change up the order and therefore miss out on some gains in certain areas, or let's just say miss out on some possible discoveries just by doing something differently. So sometimes it's good to do something different just for the sake of it. That's all I'm saying, because you may discover something else about your body from doing so. And the other thing is that, say you have your arms, say, are the weak link, right? Like Brian Fraser on my podcast lately, he asked me this question and I basically answered that in my Patreon podcast. So if you haven't tuned into the Patreon podcast, I highly recommend it. The link is in the description. But he asked about how to bring up the arms. And one of the ways that you could do this is, do your arm training at the beginning of the workout, even before your chest and your back training. And then you will, at least push those arms into a deeper level of failure and perhaps activate them more effectively. Create more mind-muscle connection between you and the arms. So this is something that some people miss out on. Just something as simple as just changing up the order of the exercises can change how you are stimulating the body. So today I'm going to do some chest and I'm going to do some rear delts, and then I will do some back after. Now, do I feel like my rear delts are so weak that I need to do them first? No, it's just out of convenience sometimes. Sometimes just because the weights or the bench is set up in a certain way, then I just do things that way. But ideally, you would train back first before delts. But I'm not really worried about that. Sometimes I change it up just for the sake of it, and then sometimes I make some different discoveries, or I start to activate certain areas that perhaps were not necessarily activated as effectively as when doing it in the more traditional sense, or doing the exercise in a traditional way. So that's something to really bear in mind, right? So let me just do a warm up here with some 70 pounders, and then I'm going to go up to maybe hundreds today. And then yeah, I'll talk about another concept that I'm playing around with right now in my yard. And this is, something pretty interesting. So make sure you stay tuned here. I think somebody switched the weights with like 10 pounders for the 70s. I think that's what's going on right now. These feel like 10 pounders. I gotta be careful not to push too hard, because if I push too hard, I'll blow the roof off my garage. So, I gotta be careful with that sometimes. So that's a tip you guys gotta remember. Don't push too hard when you're doing bench presses, because you'll push the roof off the gym. Once you get to mountain level, you'll push the roof off the gym. Don't breathe too hard. You'll exhale all the air out of the gym, so everybody will suffocate. And when you're doing chin-ups, be careful. Don't pull down too hard, because the sky will fall down. So that's some helpful hints for you right there. you notice I didn't lock out at the top there because I didn't want to push the roof off the gym. See, that's why. See, it's all explained right there. So something that a lot of people don't talk about is, or maybe they do talk about it, but I haven't heard them talk about it. But one thing a lot of people maybe don't know or don't embrace when they have goals like bodybuilding goals is that there are other forms of exercise that may help you in the long run when it comes down to rehabilitating an area or getting more strength or more coordination or just rehabilitating injuries and so forth. And you know, the thing is that I find it's easy for all of us to get stuck in tension on the muscle, weight training all the time, but not necessarily seeing that there is some benefit to different forms of tension. Now, one tension that I will say that may have some benefit in strengthening up the integrity of the joints is ballistic type training. Now, this has nothing to do with weights. You're not using any weights when you're doing this, but you see all martial artists or boxers or people that are throwing their fists around, right? Even if they're doing it at only 50% capacity, they're working the muscles in a certain way. So as you're punching, right, at the end, you basically tense the muscle to protect the joint and keep the joint together. Just by doing this, this actually has some sort of benefit of some sort to help fire the muscle when the joint is in a compromised type of position. So in that tradition, basically, what I've been doing is I've been reading some books because I used to do karate as a kid. I did it for 10 years. I was actually a karate instructor for a period of time in my life. And I had to choose between bodybuilding and karate, but I always liked the way my joints and my body felt when I was doing karate. Now, as a kid, you join martial arts because you want to be like Jean-Claude Van Damme and you want to fight and be tough. But now I'm looking at karate from a totally different point of view. Like for instance, whenever we'd punch with the left arm, you'd retract the right? And punch with the right, you retract the left back like this, right? In karate. And the funny thing is that you're actually rehabilitating the area because you're pulling as hard as you're pushing. So you're working the antagonist muscles as much as the protagonist muscles. You're working both, right, at the same time. So you're creating a certain sort of balance in the body. And you're stretching and contracting different muscles. And you're also working in different dimensional space, your three-dimensional movement, right? You're twisting and you're rotating the arms. When you're blocking, you're rotating the arms and working that rotator cuff. So it's common for people to look at just different types of weight training to rehabilitate an area. But one thing's for sure is that there's different types of exercise that can also help you in unexpected ways if you just kind of mess around a bit, right? You know, another thing is some people have trouble with their ankle joint or they have trouble with their knees. But walking hills might unexpectedly help you find the right groove when it comes down to getting that ankle to be more flexible, firing the calf and the quadricep in the right possible way, getting everything under tension to actually work and calibrate properly. Walking hills can sometimes help you with your squats, right? So these are things to think about instead of just always tension, always weight training at any cost, right? So you also, you do the Street Fighter ki every time you do a bench press, like Aruken, try it out in your gym. Just yell Aruken as loud as you can when you're doing bench presses for every rep. And I bet you're going to get a real positive response from everybody around you. Try it out, I'll let you try it first. You just let me know how it works out and then maybe I'll try it, right? I'm pretty sure I would have got more reps if I just would have went every single rep, but I wanted to try it without that first and then see how it worked out. this is another thing that you might want to consider. When you're pressing, even on an incline, there's a general tendency, even by me, just to press straight. But if you're noticing that you're not feeling the delts, or you're not feeling the chest enough, then as you move the weight up, bring it a little bit towards the eyes, just a tiny bit, and see if you start feeling that upper chest, because as you notice, the upper chest fibers, they run diagonally a bit, right? So it only stands to reason that there may be some extra input by those muscle fibers if you bring the dumbbells a little bit more towards the eyes as you move up. So from the bottom, and then as you move up, then a little bit towards the eyes. So yeah, just try that out and see how it works. Okay, I couldn't go all the way up on that last one, but at least the effort was there. So two things I want to talk about. Well, two, okay? One is I always get these people in the comments that they misunderstand very simple concepts. They get stuck in literal world, right? Where they read something and they take it too literally. So, you know, you can't even say, hey, sure is a nice day today. It's like, what? It's not nice. I ran into somebody that wasn't nice to me, so it can't be a nice day, right? This is what I mean. Like, they take things too literally, not using some sort of common sense. So in one way that this is applied, okay, is that when people say go to failure in your sets, there's a certain demographic of people that assume that you might be mid-squat, right, in the middle of the set of squats, and that you have to somehow collapse under the weight in order for that to be classified as failure. Or the bench, you just can't complete that rep, and it has to collapse on you, and that's called failure. No, that's not what we mean, or anybody means when they say take a set to failure. What they mean is take the set to as many reps as you can do and complete, and then that is classified as failure. Now, in this case with the dumbbells here, I could fail partway up and then still safely put the weight back on my legs and take it to the dumbbell rack, right? So one could argue that exercises like that help you get to a deeper level of failure. But if you're doing bench presses and you could do 10 reps, right? But you can feel your way through this. You know that 11th rep, you're not going to be able to complete, and there's nobody around to save your ass, then no, the failure set means 10 reps, not 11 where you're gonna, drop the weight. And if you can't understand that concept, you shouldn't be training, you shouldn't be leaving the house, honestly. You should be put in a straitjacket and just stuck in your room and just have somebody just feed you meals with plastic utensils, not metal ones. All right, okay, so the next concept is going to be about personal preference. Should you flare the elbows on inclines, or should you, tuck the elbows a bit? I would say it's a combination of both, and depending on how you're built and where you're feeling those forces play out, I would adjust, right? An absolute elbow flare, I'd never recommend unless you're using super lightweight and you're trying to just isolate some muscles. But in the end, you have to go on always how you feel. So if the weight, or if the tension, is right in the delt or in the pec tie-in, and you're feeling like the pecs kind of feel weird, then definitely tuck those elbows more. Don't flare them even though you're feeling the pressure right in the joint up here and stuff. Definitely, that's when you definitely want to change your form and start to tuck those elbows a bit to distribute the forces over the front delt and the pec together. And like I said before, one could say that an angular or diagonal sort of type of force might be more efficient in you getting those upper chest muscles anyway. So don't feel bad if you have to tuck the elbows a little bit. Now, too much tuck, of course, you're going to notice a lot more front delt and maybe not as much chest at all. But in the end, safety first. First is avoid injury. Second is distribute the force accordingly. And yeah, you're gonna have to make adjustments from there. All right, one more set of these. One thing I'm going to say is that I notice by doing a bit of a more diagonal movement, meaning I bring the dumbbells in an arc towards the eyes as I'm lifting the weight, I notice there's more squeeze on the upper chest and more tension on the upper chest from that. So that's my 2 cents for my specific situation. Again, it's open to experimentation for you, so try it out. So now I'm going to go into some bent over lateral raises here, right on the bench, so I don't have to move. And yeah, then I'll get a good rear delt pump before I go on to back.
That's not my bike. That's not mine. Somebody else's bike.
Nice. Now, another thing I'm going to talk to you about is ballistic movements. So when I'm doing the martial arts stuff, I've only been doing it for about a week again. You know, I'm totally out of shape when it comes down to that stuff too. Like, so I'm by no means going to be doing any seminars anytime soon. But what I am going to say is that there's sometimes ways of fooling the nervous system, meaning you may have muscle knots or certain areas that are functioning in a dysfunctional way. So you may be getting like a zapping feeling down your trap, or maybe the muscles are spasming or cramping and you're getting some sort of pain in the joints. Sometimes that is able to be re-established or re-corrected from, you know, that type of movements I'm talking about, right? Because all the muscles have to learn how to fire at the right time and be in sync. So once the muscles are in sync, then it recalibrates and you may get rid of a lot of muscle knots or issues that were there for a long time, right? Because sometimes when you do a different type of exercise, it may exploit or realign imbalances that might not be showing themselves when your body is under tension, like squats or bench presses and stuff. So sometimes through free movement and then a snap at the end, you may be reestablishing or basically confusing the muscle knots that exist in the area. So that's what I found. I used to get a zapping feeling down my right side of my neck when I was doing bent over laterals. But just from doing this punching type movement and blocking and different types of stuff I've been doing in the yard, it's totally gone. And my elbows, only after 1 week, like my elbows always felt pretty good. But my bicep tendons and everything feel much stronger. Like when I'm lifting weights and stuff, I feel like I don't have to be as careful about them. They just feel like totally tuned up in a very positive way. final set for delts, just doing a few sets. And I want to talk about one more subject, and that has to do with the general theme of what I've been saying today. One thing that happens to a lot of people that want to achieve goals is they end up getting a tunnel vision. And if your vision is too tunnel visioned, what might happen is that you get too focused on one path to your goal, not realizing that deviating from time to time from your path can help you achieve your goal faster. So on that note, sometimes people will just do weight training and weight training only, thinking that's the only thing that will help them in their results. And I fell prey to that. I fell prey to it so much when I was really young that, you know, I would only do weight training because I was just worried about losing my gains and all that stuff. And sometimes I would only do one type of workout program. I wouldn't change or experiment. And when I did finally experiment, I started to realize that, oh shit, like when I started to do more high frequency training, like 2-day splits and stuff, I got way more results, right? And that's why I sell them on my website, right? It's not because they don't work, it's because I got more results training that way. Now, one could argue that if you train one way first and then train that way, then you get more results, like who knows? But the basis of what I'm saying is that experimentation is key, and you have to deviate from time to time, kind of like I'm doing right now with martial arts and just moving, right? And what brought this on was that I was just jumping the other day, just jumping to grab this fig off a tree, and I just felt off, you know, it felt like hamstrings felt off and everything just doing that. So I figure I need to do a little bit more mobility stuff right now, and therefore see what the result is in the weight training. And what I'm noticing is that not only am I getting a bit of a cardio workout, which is great, I know I always talk about how I don't do a lot of cardio. I went through periods of time where I did a lot of cardio doing weight training and playing hockey together. But as a general rule, I don't necessarily do a lot of cardio for bodybuilding. Although, you know, there's definitely some benefits to doing cardio here and there. But mobility that accidentally gives me cardio makes a lot more sense to me rather than just sitting and spinning on a bike, right? Because I'm doing practical cardio, like something that is actually going to help me with movement and at the same time help me feel better when I'm weight training. Like I said, my elbows and like everything feels much better when I'm lifting weights now from just doing, you know, 10, 15 minutes a night of different types of movements. So my point is that by deviating away from weight training, which might be your primary goal, just doing little things here and there, you may find that they have a synergistic effect and actually help you get more bodybuilding results in the long run. So don't get too hyper-focused, right? It's good to focus on things and not, you know, spread your energy in every single direction. I agree with that. But doing a little bit of stuff here and there, just a little bit of different types of movements, you know, maybe small amounts of plyometrics or just moving the body in different angles, right? Like when you're blocking, you're rotating a lot of the shoulders. Like how much of rotation in the shoulders do you get under ballistic circumstances do you get in bodybuilding? Like none, right? So through doing these different things, you may notice that you get a lot more results in the long run. And I'm going to continue sharing with you what I'm noticing and what's happening. And I share a lot of this stuff on the Patreon podcast. So if you haven't tuned into my podcast, I highly recommend it. It's only $5 a month. And you get to tune into podcasts. And if you want to tune into all 50-something episodes that I have up already, you just go to the $20 level per month, and then you have access, and you can download all the old podcasts and stuff like that too, and you basically have access to that. So yeah, that's what I have to say about this stuff today. I'm going to go on to do some back movements. I'm going to let you guys go. Motion. And yeah, I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. And if you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalbodybuilding.com. Motion.